All right. Hello, all, and welcome to the 2023 Southeast Collaborative Online Conference. My name is Dorcas Davis, and I'll be your host for this session. The Adult Programming in a Post-Pandemic World. This event is supported through funding from the Library Services and Technology Act through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Please feel free to ask questions or make comments in the chat or interact with other attendees and the speaker within the Hoover app for this presentation. And now I'd like to introduce Micah Gross and Margaret Richlin. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, welcome everyone to Adult Programming in a Post-Pandemic World. My name is Micah Gross and I am here with Margaret Richlin.
Hi.
So we just want to introduce ourselves really quickly. Like I said, my name is Micah Gross. I am an adult services librarian for the Cobb County Public Library at the Mountain View Regional Library in Marietta, Georgia. I've been here at Mountain View since 2016, and I've been in my current role since 2018. Before I started here, I worked as a gymnastics instructor and as a paraprofessional in a elementary school media center.
Thank you. And my name is Margaret Richlin. I work for the Cobb County Public Library as well, and I'm an adult services librarian at the East Cobb Library in Marietta, Georgia. I've been here since 2021, and I previously worked for the Tampa-Hillsborough County Public Library in Florida for about 6.5 years. Prior to that, I was also a social studies teacher. I was certified to teach grades 6 through 12.
All right. So a little bit about what we are going to do today. Margaret's going to let you know what our goals are.
Yes, so as you're probably aware, COVID-19 has had a dramatic impact on the way that libraries plan and facilitate programs. This session will look at how two very different libraries approach post-pandemic programming. So you as an attendee will discover what worked, what didn't, and some helpful tips and suggestions that fellow programmers can implement at their own libraries. This session will also focus on our personal anecdotes and also our observations and how what we learn can be applied in other libraries and other settings.
So what we hope that you'll take away from this, what our objectives are with this presentation. We hope that you'll be able to learn how to build on the success of a single program to develop a program series. We want you to be able to use recurring programs to promote return attendance and facilitate that word of mouth marketing. How do we analyze demographics and statistics to meet the dynamic information needs of our patrons? And how do we develop partnerships with local organizations and businesses to create mutually beneficial relationships?
Okay, so to begin, we want to share a visualization with you of the different stages of adult programming in a post-pandemic world. As programmers, it's impossible to move forward without understanding and reflecting on where we've been. You watching this may have experienced some of these phases as you were experiencing post-pandemic programming yourselves. So phase 1, reopening and reestablishing. Phase 1 really started after libraries reopened and were given the green light to offer in-person programming again. This was a time that was characterized by changing guidelines, which also influenced how live programs could be facilitated and managed. So as a result, some libraries, like our own, took a back to basics approach. So we reinstated programs that might have been well attended prior to the pandemic, ones that might have had a built-in audience, such as book discussion groups. This was also a time where many programmers had to be flexible and willing to change or adapt their programs at a moment's notice. Flexibility was really key here. Phase 2 was a time of growth and creativity as patrons began seeking out social activities again, like adult programs. We also had a lot more adult visitors to our libraries at this time. So programmers were finally able to receive feedback from visitors, also gather some data regarding program types, frequency, and patron interests. So in turn, this allowed us as programmers to be more proactive about trying new ideas to see what would stick, what would work, and also planning future programs that would more closely align with our organization's new goals and expectations. And lastly, phase 3, which we call renewal, is where many of us are at now. This is a time of renewal that has allowed many libraries to offer new types of programs with varied topics and formats. This is also a time where many programmers have learned to simplify and streamline their planning processes and also utilize many marketing strategies. Many programmers have also had the opportunity to build new partnerships and make new connections in their local communities, something we'll talk about soon. And in other words, it means we as adult programmers are really ready for just about anything.
So a little bit about us at Cobb County and who we serve. We are a 15-branch system. We are in the northeastern or western part of Atlanta. We are in Marietta, Georgia. We have a diverse staff and we serve over 750,000 people. We are quickly growing, and that number has increased over the last few years. We are right now the third largest county in the state, and about 60% of our residents have library cards. So we serve a fairly large population.
So to continue, we wanted to share a little bit about CCPL's demographics. This is a snapshot of Cobb County's demographics as a whole. This data was gathered from Simply Analytics, which we believe to be a very helpful tool for adult programmers to learn more about where they live and work. So in looking at our graph, you can see about 13% of Cobb's population is made up of adults 65 years and over, and almost 40% are married couples with children under the age of 18. When it comes to median household income, Cobb ranks 6th in the state at almost $80,000. Though on our graph, you can see about 40% of people in Cobb actually make over $100,000. Additionally, almost 40% of Cobb's total population has earned a bachelor's degree or higher, which according to the US Census makes Cobb 5th in the state as far as educational attainment goes. When comparing this data to our respective library service populations, both the East Cobb and Mountain View communities have a higher percentage of seniors, household income, and educational attainment. And while our two communities differ in their percentages of two-parent households with children, it's safe to say that families make up a large amount of the patrons who visit our branches regularly. I'd also like to say that gathering updated demographic data like this is hugely important post-pandemic, as it helps programmers understand changes to our communities over time. You can also discover who your target audiences are and also gain insight into program topics that might be of interest to specific groups of people. So whether you're new to adult programming or you're a seasoned veteran, understanding your community's demographics may open up a new avenue of programming that you had never considered before. Okay, so moving on, here is a visualization of Cobb County's 2021 racial and ethnic demographics. According to Simply Analytics, this data was derived from the US Census Bureau, and each category was self-identified. So in looking at this bar chart, you can quickly compare and contrast Cobb County's population to East Cobb and Mountain View's respective service areas. So here you can see that East Cobb and Mountain View's populations are more similar to each other than that of the larger county. As you can see, Cobb County's white, Black, or African American, and Asian citizens make up about 90% of its population. The other 10% of the population is made up of individuals who identify as American Indian or Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, being of 2 or more races, or as some other race alone. In addition, about 13.5% of Cobb's population identifies as also being Hispanic or Latino. When comparing the East Cobb and Mountain View communities together, you can see that they differ from that of Cobb counties in a few ways. So as you can see, both communities have a higher percentage of people who identify as white and Asian. These citizens make up about 85 to 90% of each community's total population. Conversely, both communities have lower percentages of people who identify as Black or African American, Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander, and as some other race alone. These citizens make up approximately 7 to 11% of each community's populations. Both communities also report lower percentages of individuals who identify as Hispanic or Latino at roughly 6 to 7%. Interestingly, Mountain View differs from both East Cobb and Greater Cobb County in that it has a slightly higher percentage of citizens who identify as American Indian and Alaska Native, and 2 or more races at almost 1% and 4.5% respectively. So why is this important? As adult programmers, it's vitally important to understand the racial and ethnic diversity of the communities we serve. This information is useful in understanding how programming can benefit our adult patrons, especially those that may be underserved or underrepresented in our libraries. We'd also like to mention that as programmers, we all must be aware that the pandemic disproportionately impacted communities of color, as evidenced by the ALA's 2021 and 2022 State of America's Libraries special reports. Being mindful of these issues can help we as programmers grow and develop more equitable and responsive programs for our libraries and the communities that we serve.
Right, so we're going to talk about some of our programming stats for the county as a whole. We have about 5.7 million web page users, and that has increased slightly from 2021. But what we can use our web page to do is drive people to register for our programs, drive people to look and see what kind of events we've got coming up. So people look and people love to search and find out what we've got going on each quarter before we post our programs. They're asking, when are you posting? When do we get to know what's coming up? Our programming has increased hugely and drastically from 2021. As a county as a whole, we've increased our programming numbers 70%. We have over 5,000 programs offered for our user community. Our program attendance has also increased drastically. Over 70,000 people increased the number of programs that came to the programs last year. And our visitors increased over 50%. We have 1.2 million visitors to our library each year and to our 15 different branches.
So now that you know a little bit more about Cobb County Public Library and its broader demographics, we'd like to give you a closer look at our respective libraries and programming data. So on the page, you can see a photo of East Cobb Library. East Cobb is part of the Mountain View region, and this branch was established in 2010. So you can see from the photo, it's a really unique branch. It's actually located in the Park Air Landing Shopping Center in Marietta, Georgia. So this is a destination and a lot of people come to visit when they're running other errands in the plaza. We have a lot of people that take advantage of our study rooms, our community spaces, and our lobby amenities. Many people actually never make it into the main library. They like to just hang out in the lobby. It really is a community destination.
And Mountain View is the regional hub for the Mountain View region. We are the highest circulating branch in our system. We circulate between 30 and 40,000 items per month, and we have about 15 to 20,000 visitors per month. And that breaks down to about 800 to 1,400 people per day coming into our branch to use our services and check out items. And that can vary based on the time of year. During the summer, our foot traffic doubled. Last June, our foot traffic doubles our average to over 30,000 people visiting in that 1 month. There are benefits to having that high circulation and that high foot traffic. And we have a lot of opportunity for grassroots marketing. We're able to really get out, have those conversations because there's a lot of people around to have those conversations with. And we get to just really let our patrons know what we've got going on at our center. We are located in a government complex. There are several other public service agencies that we share a parking lot with. We have an aquatic center, a senior center, and an art center nearby that are in our complex with us. So what that means for us is that we really have to be creative in some of the programs that we offer, because we don't want to duplicate things that some of these other these centers are offering.
Okay. So continue, we want to have you get a better sense of programming in our respective branches. So let's start by looking at East Cobb's programming statistics. I really believe that statistics can tell a story. And I think by looking at East Cobb statistics that you're going to see the pandemic play out in ours, especially when looking at a small part of our programming data, which we looked specifically at the fall. We looked at pre-pandemic statistics, those from fall of 2021, which was the restart of in-person programming at our branch. And then a year later, we looked at fall of 2022. So you can see from our slide here that attendance was definitely lower in 2021 than prior to the pandemic, and of course after. You can also see that the number of programs that we offered in 2021 was slightly higher than that of the pre-pandemic. And then later on, a year later, we almost doubled the number of programs we were offering. If you're looking specifically at the restart of in-person programming, the majority of those programs being offered were definitely those reoccurring programs like pre-pandemic favorites. We restarted a senior wellness series and also returned to in-person book clubs at that time. And while we did return to pre-established programs, we also launched some new programs that were more special interest. We also started a lot of things like clubs. And some of these have stayed with us. Some of these have evolved into other programs that we're now really seeing the positive effects of at this time. If you look at our demographics for the fall of 2022, you'll see that how that attendance improved and even surpassed pre-pandemic levels. But you can also see that we offered the greater number of programs, and we also tried out different formats. So prior to the pandemic, we weren't really doing virtual programs because there wasn't a need for them. And this branch didn't really engage in passive programming at all. These were things that clearly came out of the pandemic. And we did offer, in addition to virtual programs, we sort of pivoted more to hybrid programs where we're offering opportunities for people to attend a program live and then people to also attend from home, which is a trend that we've seen across the country. We also had the opportunity of trying out some new passive programs when people were a little lukewarm about attending programs in a live setting. So that really helped people to stay engaged with programming and for us to try out some new creative ideas. So these are all trends that really took hold in 2021 and continued into 2022 and even to the present. These are things I think that are going to stay with us into the future.
So Mountain View has been really lucky. We've been able to rebound and even surpass our pre-pandemic numbers. So that's been very beneficial and positive for us to be able to see that. And as you can see, just like East Cobb residents, people were really hesitant to return to in-person programming in fall of 2021. We were also hesitant to plan a lot of programs in 2021. We just didn't know what was going to happen during the winter months and really what we are going to see. So we wanted to just kind of have a balance in what we were offering. But what you can see, one of the biggest differences between East Cobb and between Mountain View is the number of virtual or hybrid programs that we offer. We started offering our virtual book group during the pandemic, and we continued to offer that with a hybrid option once we returned in person. And as you can see, in fall of 2021, we only had 2 people attend our virtual programs. And by the fall of 2022, we didn't have any virtual attendance. And while we still offer this as a hybrid option, we know that any other programs that we offer, they may or may not have that response. And so we don't do a lot of hybrid or virtual programs at our library. Our passive programs, though, have had really high responses. These are all geared towards families because those are a majority of our user community, and those are the people that we see coming in regularly and frequently to our branch. So what drives programming at our library system? How do we get people in? How do we meet their needs? How do we plan for what they are looking for and what they want, especially in these post-pandemic years? So what do our patrons want now? What are they looking for?
So this was really a question that I think all programmers had to ask themselves after the pandemic, and when a lot of us were given that green light to restart programming in our libraries. So post-pandemic, understanding what patrons needed and expected with adult programming, it was difficult at first. However, we were also able to have opportunities to be creative and try out a lot of new ideas. We had the opportunity to find out what would inspire people to finally leave their homes and interact with us. Basically, coming out of that, we found that patrons really wanted programs that provided them with that social interaction that they had been missing. They needed those tangible personal connections. I think just in speaking with our patrons and trying to learn how to reconnect, we heard so many anecdotes about, I'm so glad that you're offering this again, or have you thought about this? People really wanted to engage again. And while like some of our numbers might have remained small for many programs, like right at the beginning, we did start to see that groups would come out and they were really engaged and excited to be there. They were just so grateful that they had an opportunity for what they called some normalcy, just being able to come in and talk to people and actually have a conversation and try out a new hobby, try out a new skill, or really just get to have some cultural enrichment. Some of the things you'll see that people wanted were those social interactions and connections. They wanted that cultural enrichment and diversity. They also wanted groups, programs that provided some kind of practical application for their lives now. And also self-care. We found a lot of success with people being a little more mindful about their health and how they're interacting in their communities. And they wanted programs that really spoke to that.
Yeah, so you're going to see in some of these pictures, we've got a couple of different options. We had a really successful a region-wide Diwali program at East Cobb in October of 2022. We were expecting about 60 people to show up to the program, and over 150 people ended up coming. So that was one of our really first big large-scale successes that we had for a region-wide program. You're also going to see a picture of our walking group. Like we said, exercise programs, those practical applications and self-care programs have really been successful. This was our first one, and we're really looking forward to having additional walking meetups so that people can really get out there and learn and chat with their neighbors and get to know the people around them. And then the other picture is of the Foodie Road Trip program, which has been a really successful program series that we've been able to build off at Mountain View. And I'll talk more on that in a little while. But people got to come in, they got to learn about local restaurants, they got to meet a local celebrity, as we called her, and learn some fun cooking food demonstrations that they are able to cook at home. So how did patrons respond? How did we figure out how to meet them where they were? As with everybody else in the world, our patrons really did experience a lot of virtual burnout. I talked about with Mountain View how we just didn't see people coming out for those virtual or those hybrid programs. East Cobb, on the other hand, really did. And so you'll see from our chart here, our graph here, that East Cobb, when they asked their patrons what kind of programming formats did they want, people really appreciated continuing either a virtual or a hybrid book group. Very few people were ready to return fully in person. They've actually had success with having people from out of state, out of the country continue coming to their book groups. So that's been a really positive thing for them. Mountain View, on the other hand, like I said, we had virtual burnout, and that helped us drive in-person attendance. I actually had last year in in 2022, my book group went from like 10 to 12 regular users. Then by the fall, we had 20 to 25 people. We've actually had to split it into 2 groups just to be able to accommodate the number of people who are interested and coming out. For us, COVID restrictions were a barrier. We saw 2021, as soon as those COVID restrictions were lifted, our programming numbers and our attendance skyrocketed. The other thing, though, that came out of the pandemic was that was really positive was how we are using registration. During the pandemic, pre-pandemic, we actually viewed it as a barrier to attendance. Only the programs that we had a limited number of seats or a limited number of supplies were the only ones that we used registration for. And then during the pandemic, because of those social distancing rules, things like that, we had to have registration. And so people learned and became acclimated to using registration. And we've been able to use that now post-pandemic to promote connections, to cross-market. We email people reminders, and reminders have been integral into driving our attendance. So you'll see by my chart, if we sent an email reminder, you'll see in blue, and then if we didn't, for whatever reason, send an email reminder to to remind people that we're having Zumba tonight, how much lower our attendance is. And there is some impact for some of these with time of year. That definitely sometimes had an impact on increasing or decreasing numbers. But overall, what we found was registration increased attendance and those reminders increased attendance. So that's been a really positive thing that we've been able to see and use coming out of the pandemic. So how do we reach our patrons? How do we market? Because marketing has been extremely important coming out of the pandemic. So how do we improve that? How do we reach people and let them know that we're here and ready to serve them and have these options and have these programs available for them? So we've been using grassroots and guerrilla strategies. Being able to get out and talk to people, have those conversations, understand what they want. I walk the stacks, and if I see somebody in the cookbook section, I'll talk to them and be like, hey, did you know that we've got these cooking programs coming up? We have food demonstrations. If you're interested and want to learn more about that, let me get you a bookmark. Let me get you a flyer. Let me get you some information about that. We also use guerrilla strategies, which is get the information out to everybody all at once. So we've been using that. We do that a lot for our family programs because we want the word out as much as possible. Those large scale programs we've been using a lot of guerrilla strategies. We also use checkouts and holds. So what we do and what we've seen East Cobb do is we put our flyers and our bookmarks and our promotional materials in people's books when they're checking out or when they're picking up their holds. Our hold numbers have increased drastically since the pandemic. So we put those in as people are coming to pick up their holds or their curbside pickups. We'll put promotional materials in there. And we also market our programs when people are getting new library cards. We let people know what we've got to offer. It's not just about, hey, this is our checkout limit. It's also about, hey, this is our checkout limit. And let me show you all about all the things you can come do with your library card. We do a lot of in-branch promotion. As soon as you walk in our doors, we have our ViewSonic slides playing. So we see people just stopping and watching those. And I use that as an opportunity also to go up and talk to them. Let them know, oh, what are you looking for? Let me show you how to register. Let me show you the flyer. Let me get you a bookmark. Let me show you what else we've got. So it's all about having those conversations, and we have our flyers. So people are seeing it at multiple levels as they come through the library. It's not just at the front. It's not just at our flyers. It's not just stuffing the books. So it's those multiple levels of marketing. We also we found series programs help us with word of mouth marketing. So a few weeks ago, I had another foodie road trip program, and I asked one of the attendees, hey, how did you hear about this program? And they said, oh, our friends came. They've come to every single one of these programs and we love it. And they wanted to bring us along. For our Zumba programs, we also have that. We have parents come and then they bring their kids. And so we have grandparents come and then they bring their kids and then they bring their kids. So we have, it's multi-generational and multi-level of being able to get those words out.
Also, another incredible point about marketing is we really spend a lot of time utilizing our staff to help get the word out as well. We will explain and pitch our adult programs to our frontline staff. We're also really fortunate in the Mountain View region that we sort of have a combined portal where we all have a web page for every one of our branches in our region. And that's a great place for us to put information about our programs. Like, for example, I like to have all of the direct links to the registration ready to go for staff so that if they're talking to a patron that's interested, hey, I can help you register for that. And they can just go right to the registration page. They don't have to go through all the steps of finding it on the website. Like, it really just kind of cuts down the amount of steps. We've also found that getting our own staff excited about what we're offering helps them have that buy-in, and they're going to be more apt to want to suggest programs to other people because they'll be having a conversation and, oh, I noticed you checked out a book on cooking. Have you heard about Mountain View's Foodie Road Trip series? And it really helps drive that conversation and also makes for really warm and engaging interactions at our circulation desks. Letting people know about these upcoming programs, it helps increase our numbers. Doing large-scale regional programs and marketing at multiple libraries has also helped. We really try to look out for each other. If one of us is doing a large-scale program, we like to share our programming flyers with each other, and then we will let people know about, hey, Mountain View's doing this new series, or over in Mountain View, they'll let them know what we're doing over at our branch as well. You can see one of the photos is a great example of that cross promotion. We'll put programming flyers, registration, QR codes ready to go for those other events.
We also use other county departments and our commissioners. So we email up to our administration all of our programs that we've got coming up, and then they let our commissioners know, who then let their constituents know. So people are engaged in that way. One way we do it is with county departments. I told you we're in a government complex with other county agencies. We walk our flyers over and we say, hey, do you want to post any of these? Do you think that your patrons will be interested, your users will be interested? And they know their users better than we do. So they will say, oh yeah, I want this flyer and this flyer. Oh, my users will love this flyer. They'll be really interested in this program. So that not only helps us get data and feedback of what people around us are doing, but also helps us market what we're doing. We also, we talked about QR codes and bookmarks, but those tangible promotional materials, getting those things into people's hands, they'll post them on their refrigerator and get to see what else is coming up. We talked about QR codes for registration. That has, like we talked about before, registration being really great for driving attendance. Now we're going to be able to get them registered easily. So we have all of our flyers have QR codes on them. We're able to do those in Canva. If you don't have a Canva account, it's free. It's fantastic. We can really make professional level marketing materials through Canva, but they'll take a picture with their phone. We use those smartphones. We pull them out and they'll take a picture of the QR code, and that will drive them directly into our registration pages. So it's not just about, being able to register for them, but then we can show them how to easily register, especially if they're in branch for themselves. How do we use technology? We've touched on this a little bit. But social media, everybody's using social media. Your dad's using social media. Your uncle who's off the grid and doesn't have anything else to do is using social media. But what we can do is we can post all of our upcoming events onto our social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's an obvious. Most people are doing that. But what we also do with social media is we ask patrons who have had a good experience to post on their social media, share our programs that they see that they're interested in with their friends and family. For our New Year's Eve party, which was a big family event that we had for our region back in December, we had somebody, a mother, post a video of our balloon drop, which they said was the best balloon drop they had ever seen. We said, will you post it? Will you let people know that this was a really great experience you had? And we've had 2.4 thousand views on that video so far. So that's a really great way to get that word out, is using our patrons, that word of mouth marketing. Margaret touched on our Cobb County events page. That's really great. Like we said, our library users are on there waiting and ready to see what we've got coming up. They'll scroll through, see what they're interested in. They'll be able to filter by what age group they want to register for. If they only want adult programs, they can look at that. So it's been really, really great. We love our events page. We love that people can use that. And then we talked about registration. We have all of our registration links through our events page, so people can easily just jump in, get registered, and then we can use that information to cross-market, to remind them, to connect with them, and really be able to engage in that way with them. But we'd be remiss if we didn't mention how we are using it with planning. We understand the need to share information. Coming out of the pandemic, we never knew when somebody was going to be sick. So we need that to be able to share that information. So we use a lot of our Google Workspace, and we're lucky enough to have Google Workspace provided to us by our state library agency, the GPLS, Georgia Public Library Service. So our library system, every library, every person has a Google account. So we use those tools. We use docs and sheets, and you'll see here an image of a sheet that I use to share all of my contact information, my upcoming events, my dates, any notes I have, and I can also keep organized and make sure that I've done every part of the planning process. So for me, not only am I able to then share that information with the people who may need it, I can use it for my own organization. You'll also see we use Google Calendar, and we'll share with people who might have to jump in and facilitate a program. We'll share contact information. Not everybody has access to this. Obviously, it's going to be because we don't want to share information, but with the wrong types of people. But that is just with our full-time staff members. And I actually had to use this the other day. We had a presenter who was running a little bit late, and I was able to jump in, find his phone number really easily, and give him a call and find out what was going on. So then I could communicate that with our staff and our patrons who are waiting to get into that program. We also have Canva. Like I said before, Canva is free if you have the basic. We have a shared Canva account that we've been really lucky that we have the funding for our county to have that. But we're not only able to use those professional level tools to create beautiful marketing, but we can share them across our region. So if we have a program that was really successful and somebody maybe sees that in another library in our region, they can say, hey, how did you feel about this? Can I use your flyer? So we're not having to reinvent the wheel, and that's really streamlined the planning and the marketing process as well.
So as we continue, we'd like to show you some success stories at each of our respective libraries. This is really to kind of show you how you can put all of this together in order to gain some inspiration or some ideas for how you might start similar programs at your own libraries. So I'd like to talk a little bit about East Cobb. Post-pandemic, it really did take some time for us to find our footing. We did take a break from offering a senior wellness series that pre-pandemic was very, very popular. In fact, it was so popular that they usually had to be a little worried about how many people were in the room. We sort of had a lukewarm debut in 2021, which is really understandable. People were worried about attending live programs, and exercising, while wearing a mask and things like that. People were a little hesitant about that. So we took a break from that. And then we came back in the fall of 2022. And at this point, it was a really great success. So again, this was really popular pre-pandemic. And it was one of the first series that we restarted once library programming resumed. And at this point, all but one of my previous presenters has recommitted to the series, and our attendance has really steadily improved every single month. It started off slow, but almost every class we have, because we do them on Wednesdays and we offer different programs every Wednesday, like we do Tai Chi, chair yoga, we offer a falls prevention class, and we also do meditation. I've seen our numbers go up almost every class, which is really heartening. So I really can attribute the success of restarting this series to a few different ways, mainly our marketing attempts. So with this particular program, I've started advertising in several of our neighborhood newsletters, and also with the East Cobb Civic Association, which actually reaches 9,000 households. So they've been a wonderful organization to partner with to get the word out. A lot of my new patrons, like new faces that I've seen, have heard about this series from one of those sources. I've also been really fortunate to have a member of my own team. She is a meditation teacher. It's a hobby and a passion of hers. So she kind of helped to really round out our programming lineup. I did have a meditation teacher prior to the pandemic who's not returned. So I was able to utilize staff's talents and expertise to really bring back a much loved program. So offering this series has really taught me the importance of providing these wellness style programs to my adult senior patrons. It also inspired me to become certified to teach an evidence-based program called Matter of Balance. This is a national program. Many people can get certified to teach this type of program. And this is something that we just debuted at East Cobb earlier this spring, and it's also been a great success. But I really think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that those that attend wellness programs, I was able to cross promote and get them into Matter of Balance as well. Another defining feature of East Cobb's post-pandemic success, I think, has really been us building our plaza partnership with our plaza management. And also the individual businesses in our plaza. I mean, we're there, we might as well take advantage of our neighbors, right? So I can say that I've been really successful in getting the plaza management to help co-sponsor some of our large scale events. So the two that I have photos of here on this slide are our adult job fair, and also which we did in our community room. And then we offered in November several adult life-size game nights, and we did this in our plaza's outdoor entertainment space. It's like a green space in the parking lot, and it's got nice lights and seating areas, a nice place for people to congregate. So they actually were really excited to partner with us on that. And you can see in the photo in the background, we offered a hot chocolate station, which people absolutely loved, because we did this in November and it was cold. I can honestly say that many of our businesses in our plaza have been really receptive to working with us. A few that I have really enjoyed working with are PT Solutions. They come and do our falls prevention class. And we've also recently gotten a business called Omni Med Spa, who they actually have a nurse on staff that's come and been a guest speaker at one of our other programs, talking about skin health for older adults, which has been really successful. I found that they're willing to come out and participate as presenters. And again, my programming team laid the groundwork for some of these successful relationships, because we try to reach out through phone, email, or really just canvassing. Sometimes we'll just go for a walk up the plaza. We'll share our programming marketing materials with them. We talk to them about, possible ideas that they want to partner with us. I can also say that they've been helpful in helping to reestablish former relationships with previous presenters and organizers, and also special interest clubs like Keep Cobb Beautiful and the Mushroom Club of Georgia. We mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but we were really heartened by the high interest in cultural programs at East Cobb. We had a very successful turnout at our region-sponsored Diwali program in October 2022. And this was something that a lot of CCPL staff worked on. It was heavily advertised through all our marketing channels. In addition to this, at our branch, we found that a lot of our culturally focused take-home craft kits have been some of our most popular. In fact, one of the ones that people really enjoyed was last September, we did a serape-inspired wreath in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month that was really well received. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about my biggest surprise as an adult programmer post-pandemic, and that's the growth of our writing workshop. This is a critique group. They meet monthly. They come to read and discuss each other's work. And this was a program that was inspired by patrons. When I first started working at East Cobb and I was meeting new patrons and talking to them about what type of programming they might want, establishing a writing workshop was one of the ideas that was suggested to me. I had previously offered writing workshops when I worked in Florida, so I thought, okay, let's give it a shot. And it was slow to start. When we started in January 2022, I only had 2 members, but it's grown. I'm up to the point now where I have about 30 patrons on my roster, and I get about 10 to 15 people participating monthly. I think that much of the success of this program has a lot to do with the fact that from the very beginning, we were and we still are one of the only live writing workshop groups operating in the county. A lot of them just stopped altogether during the pandemic, and some of them went to virtual and are still only meeting virtually. I also was really fortunate to make a connection with the Atlanta Writers Club. They actually advertise our group in their monthly newsletter, so a lot of my new membership has been driven by that. They also invited me to their workshop facilitators group. So this is a group where I can, talk to other experts that are offering writing workshops. They helped me figure out the logistics of running this program as it's evolved, and they helped me to learn new methods to keep all of the materials organized, because there's a lot of moving parts to offering a program like this. So they've offered a lot of support. I'm really grateful. And all I can say is that there have been times, when post-pandemic programming has been challenging at East Cobb, but it's also been a really rewarding journey. And I'm so excited to have seen some of our new ideas flourish.
Right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Mountain View's success. So one of our most successful program series actually started before the pandemic. In 2019, I mentioned earlier that I was previously a fitness instructor. I knew that I really wanted to tie that into some of my programming. So I found a fitness instructor friend that I knew and said, hey, do you want to come teach? And she said, I can't do it for free, but I do have somebody that I know who's a newly certified Zumba instructor. Let me introduce you to him, and he would really love to come teach and gain some experience. So in 2019, I met Kevin, who is our Zumba instructor, and he started teaching, and he would teach monthly, and it was really successful then. We were able to usually have 20 people on average show up to all of our Zumba. And then after about a year of him gaining experience, he emailed me and he said, hey, I'm not going to be able to come anymore. I don't have time anymore. I've got some paying gigs. I said, congratulations. I'm so glad I could help on your journey. And a few weeks later, the pandemic hit and everything shut down. Everything stopped. And one day I came in and noticed that he was teaching Zumba in the empty parking lot across the street. And he had taken a lot of those people that he had met teaching Zumba at Mountain View before the pandemic, and they had started taking his class in the parking lot, and he had gained a really dedicated following. And then when we returned in 2021 and 2022 to in-person program, he reached out to me and he said, hey, I would love to come back and teach again at the library. Can we make that happen? I said, of course. And so that's grown. So he brought those dedicated people that were working out with him in a parking lot outside in the cold, and he brought them in with him. And so they started becoming really dedicated library users. They come in beforehand and they will meander the library stacks, check out a few items, and then go in and start working out with him. And that also, we've been able to grow that with word of mouth. So you'll see from the picture, people come with their kids, people come with their friends, people, I have mothers and daughters who are adults come and, get to hang out together and work out. And what's really been great is, people are able to share that love of exercise and share something so positive with their friends and their family and their relatives. So you'll see we did with that program, we were able to see that we had a lot of success with all ages program. A lot of our users are families with young kids. So we were able to really roll with that and market a lot of our programs as all ages programs. One of our more successful program series is chess. During the school year, we have a little bit more, but in the summertime, all of a sudden we were seeing 30 people come to every chess meetup. So that's been really successful. We also partnered with the Mushroom Club of Georgia. So we've been able to offer that at both East Cobb and Mountain View. And every single time we have to have a wait list for that program. People love growing their own mushrooms. And seeing the success we've had with that fungi program, I was scrolling through my social media one day and I saw one of my contacts. She had started to come out with her own regional television program called Foodie Road Trip. And where this is kind of like a diners, drive-ins, and drives type program where she goes around, talks to local chefs about their menu and see what they've got cooking. And I reached out to her. I said, hey, you want to come do a program at the library about your show? That's super cool. I think people would really like that. She said, of course. So she came. She's been now 3 times. Every single time, it started out small, but people were extremely engaged. The feedback was so positive. One person actually went over to the senior center and they're like, you'll never guess what program they had over at Mountain View. It was so cool. But we market her as like a celebrity foodie. She goes on the news pretty often around here and shares her knowledge. So she comes in, she'll share about local restaurants. She'll do a food demonstration. Everybody kind of gets to taste it, see what's got going on, get a recipe, take that home and try it themselves. And each time she's come, people have come out, more and more people. It's really grown. Our last one was a few weeks ago. I asked somebody, hey, how did you hear about this program? And she said, oh, I came with my friends. They've been to every single one of her programs and they love her. And we were really excited to come with them and see what it was all about. And seeing that success of that foodie program, we developed a series out of that. So our Foodie Road Trip is really the anchor program for that series. And we've started developing partnerships with local businesses. I found a lot of these businesses just by driving around my neighborhood, seeing things that might interest people. I'll look them up on Google. I'll look them up on Data Axle to get their contact information. I'll find their website and then I'll just cold email them and just let them know what we've got going on. I'll say, hey, we have this program series at Mountain View Regional Library. Are you interested in joining us? You get to share about your products. We can't sell anything, but you get to share it, get your name out there, and then we get a free program out of it. And that's been really, really successful. You'll see in one of these pictures, we had a pepper celebration where we had a local hot sauce maker come in. He talked about how he started growing peppers and making his own hot sauce. And people were really excited about that one. That was not on our normal program night. And I was surprised with the number of people that turned out and were really excited. So we've really been able to grow that. Coming up this year, we're so excited to continue off those successes. We've got a local pie company, a local butter company, a local gardener, and our staff, getting that staff buy-in, going back to that, our staff are more excited sometimes than anybody else to be like, hey, who's coming this time? And so they've been really integral in getting that word out there and giving us ideas too. They'll be like, hey, I saw this thing the other day when I was driving. Do you want to reach out to them? Yeah, that'd be awesome. So it's been really, really great and really successful. So we're excited to see how that goes in the future with 2023.
Okay, so real quick, we just wanted to talk to you about some more of our results with post-pandemic programming and also some surprises. I know we don't have a lot of time, so we'll try to get through this as quickly as we can. First and foremost, just know that despite all the challenges of the pandemic, we really saw this as a reset. This was a chance for us to end up in a better position to evaluate some of the changes that we made and also to move forward. We got new opportunities for creativity and innovation. And on the flip side of that, we kind of got to analyze some of our practices and processes and look at our planning process pre-pandemic and maybe make some changes, maybe actually, stop doing some things that we used to do that maybe they weren't working, retool some things. So I really think that really helped us with our approach, really trying to frame it in a more positive light. It was an opportunity to try new things. As you saw in our previous slides, really taking the time to utilize data and that feedback from your patrons to think about some new programs that you could possibly offer in your community, maybe things you hadn't tried prior to the pandemic, or maybe things that you tried and failed, maybe they would work because, things have changed. A lot of our libraries have tried new ideas, new programming formats. Some have worked in some locations and some have not. We've also really dug deep to try out different marketing techniques and different strategies, and we use them simultaneously. So we're talking up our programs, using that word of mouth marketing. We're, printing the flyers, including the QR codes, building those even into like our displays and our monitors. So all of these things are happening simultaneously to get the word out. One of our really cool surprises that came out of us trying some new things was that we found out that once patrons were sort of reacclimatized to coming into programs, that they actually were willing to travel. They were sort of incentivized to travel just based off of our program offerings. So you can see one of East Cobb's anecdotes that we had a couple of patrons who they live in other areas of the county, and because we offered a specific program that spoke to them, they were willing to get in their car and come out to East Cobb. And both of the people mentioned in this anecdote, it was their first time coming to East Cobb. They had never been to East Cobb before. So that was really, really heartening. And obviously we've mentioned this before, it's been a little bit easier in some ways to find local partners, especially people who maybe they have specific hobbies and interests, or even a business. They want to get the word out just as much as we do. And I think, again, just as patrons really love those tangible connections, I think businesses and people with hobbies and things, they also want those connections too. It's a really, the atmosphere is different. I think people want to support each other more. And people also, they feel the need now to give back to their communities.
So this just goes over really fast, a kind of an overview of what we've already talked about. We're continuing those hybrid programs, especially at East Cobb, but that helps us. We can create that connection beyond geography, and we don't necessarily have to have our presenters. Like we said, those connections are easier to make now, and those presenters don't necessarily have to be from Cobb County or be in person. Those take and makes, those passive programs have been really, really popular. People are excited to have them. Building those mutually beneficial and sustainable partnerships, having those repeat people coming back over and over and over, like Sky, like Kevin, for Zumba and for our foodie road trip. They're able to build those relationships. We're using the talents of staff. We recently had a staff member who loves to play dominoes, and he had a dominoes program, and it was the first one, and we had a pretty decent turnout for the fact that it was the very first dominoes program. So I actually had somebody afterwards go, "Oh, dominoes to us tonight? Oh, I didn't even realize, I forgot." Again, she had it registered, which is why registration is so important. But it just showed us that that's something that we can use our staff talent. And then, of course, we go back to that registration, promoting connection and facilitating attendance. So we have a lot of resources that we want to share with you guys. Canva, again, you can get that basic level for free. We have, through our county, Data Axle, which helps us find those contact information if we can't find them somewhere else on Google. Google Workspace for sharing our information and planning our programs, making sure we're organized. I actually have used Library Connect to find out when people are coming into the library, so I can kind of plan those programs around our high foot traffic, or be out on the floor doing those, doing some marketing and sharing our information when we know we have a lot of people in the building. And then simply analytics, finding out who our user community is.
Absolutely. And just a few resources for those of you that are looking for inspiration or new programming ideas. Of course, us being in Georgia, I'd like to mention GPLS's Adult Services website. So this is a great resource for any new adult programmers. They offer training. They even have this really cool listserv where they share, things that are happening out in the world, and new presenters that you might have the opportunity to book, many of which are free. They also have these great one sheets with programming directions. So if you're just looking for something new from scratch, this could be a great place where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I also have to pitch, ALA's Library of the Future. If you just want to get a sense of how library programming is changing, especially due to the pandemic, this is a way to view current trends. I have to pitch, Ontarian Librarian. This is a great blog that has a lot of cool ideas. I like that they have ideas for younger adults, which are notoriously difficult to get to come to programs. So they actually have a really cool suggestion on there for like a friendship speed dating program, which I thought was great. Post-pandemic, people want that social ability. I also, I've always enjoyed the 5-Minute Librarian. It's not as up to date anymore, but there's still some really good stuff in their archive. I think you could find some really neat ideas. Also, I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about the ALA, which offers Programming Librarian. They have a website, but I really have to promote their Facebook group. If you are on Facebook, I definitely suggest joining it because it's really dynamic. You can go on there. Lots of people are posting almost every day, looking for ideas and sharing ideas and also advice. It's in real time, and you could probably ask a question and get answers to it like within a matter of minutes, even hours. Public Libraries Online, it's a publication of PLA. It's also very helpful. So take a look at those.
And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to share ideas, or if you want some ideas from us, we're always willing to help. So please just let us know.
We'd love to hear from you.
We're here for you. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Micah and Margaret, for being here today. And thank you everyone for attending our webinar. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to the speaker or conference host using the Hula app. An evaluation is provided with the conference session resources, and we would welcome your feedback about the session and the conference. Thanks everyone for making the 2023 Southeast Collaborative Conference successful. See you all next year.